everybody, and welcome to the next video in this evolution of Halo Concept Art Edition series. It's an awful name. I've been working on this series for the past couple weeks on my channel, and I've been enjoying it. But today, we're going to be taking a break from the Covenant, because I've already done the Elites and the Grunts. They're already up on the channel, so be sure to check those out if you haven't seen them yet. They're pretty cool. And today, we're going to be focusing on the UNSC Marines, because they're awesome, they're badass, and I love talking about them, so we're doing their episode now. Let's get started. And by the way, this video is going to be a little bit different than the other two because, as you can probably guess, the concept art for a human being didn't change as much as the aliens that they literally had to design for the Covenant. A human is a human. They just made them as humans. You know, they didn't decide that this human's going to have 7 fingers or something like that. Humans are humans. They just really changed their armor designs, their weapon designs, but they changed a lot, and there's also 2 different kinds of UNSC people in Halo Combat Evolved. There's the Navy Crewman, and then there's the actual UNSC Marine. We're going to do both in this video, but starting with the Navy Crewman, here is the first piece of concept art that I found, and the first thing you'll notice is that these guys look nothing like the Navy Crewmen that we got in the final build of Halo Combat Evolved. These guys actually look like they're meant for combat on the field. They're wearing boots, they have special harnesses, little data tablets, maybe they're giving orders on the battlefield, I don't know. Some of them have like goggles on their hats, and they're like not terrified because when you actually think about the Navy Crewmen that we got in Halo Combat Evolved, when you see them in like the second mission of Halo, they are basically damsels in distress. They are running around, hiding with their pistols, and it's up to Master Chief and the Marines to save them. But from the concept art, it's really interesting because it seems like they wanted a more hands-on combat approach with the Navy Crewmen, but they completely changed them in the final build of Halo Combat Evolved. But either way, moving on to the next piece of concept art, and here it is! We almost had women in Halo Combat Evolved, which I find super interesting because there were no women in Halo Combat Evolved at all, period, with the exception of Cortana, but she's an AI. But either way, they weren't in the game. They didn't get added into Halo until Halo 2, and I find it really cool that they actually they tried to get them into the game, but for whatever reason, due to time constraints or whatever, they weren't added into the game. But one thing I've always loved about the Marines and the Navy crew, all of the UNSC in Halo, but especially Halo Combat Evolved, is the charm that the Marines had. Their banter was so funny, and they were just awesome. I loved them. They were badass, and I've always said this. I've said this like 1,000 times throughout my videos, but I've always thought that the biggest inspiration that was drawn for the designs of the Marines in Halo, especially in Halo Combat Evolved, was the design of the Colonial Marines from the Aliens movies. I've always thought that the banter was the same, their armor designs were really similar, and I felt like that was their big inspiration. And to think to have that they were trying to have female Marines in Halo Combat Evolved, that it gave us the kind of banter that we saw with like Vasquez from Aliens. I think that's really cool, and just makes me wonder what could have been if they actually would have had that time to put them in there. I just think that's fascinating because they ultimately made it in Halo 2, but they were almost in Halo 1 maybe. Either way, moving on to the next thing, you have this guy, the next piece of concept art, and what I find so funny about the concept art of the Navy Crewmen, I feel like with every piece, they're just further devolving them into the damsels in distress that we get in the final build of the game. With every piece of concept art, their kit is stripped down further. This guy's missing his harness, he's missing his helmet, or his hat with the goggles, which is kind of cool because in the final build, the Navy Crewmen don't have anything on their heads. They're just running around in their little spacesuits thing, and that basically gets us to the final build of the Navy Crewmen that we see in Halo Combat Evolved. These guys you can see from mission to mission, they're in the Pillar of Autumn, they're working at all the desks doing clerical work and stuff, and when they're actually on the Halo ring, the Marines and Master Chief are saving them. They're often fine cowering with their magnums and stuff, but they were almost, if you look at their concept art, they almost seem like they were designed to have more of a hands-on approach on the battlefield, but they decided to take that away and give it to the Marines for whatever reason. But they all pretty much look the same in Halo Combat Evolved, the Navy Crewmen. They changed the color from red to blue to yellow, but they're all pretty much the same. They all run around with magnums and are terrified of the Covenant. But moving on now to the Marines, the reason you probably clicked on this video, here's the first piece of concept art that I found right here. And what I find so interesting about this is what I mentioned earlier in the video. I've actually already mentioned this, that I've always thought that the UNSC Marines drew a lot of inspiration from the Colonial Marines from Aliens. And so when I find a piece of concept art that doesn't necessarily reflect that as much, I think that's really cool, and that's what I'm seeing with this guy here, because he looks like, if you look at his helmet, for example, it looks like something you'd see from like Vietnam or World War II. It just looks like your basic rounded helmet. It looks nothing like the UNSC helmet that we see on the Marines throughout Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3, because they have a very signature helmet shape that they really stuck with for a long time, and this absolutely isn't it. He is missing his shoulder armor and arm armor, and another thing that you really notice with the Marines concept art art is that the clothing that they're wearing underneath their armor, you can tell was supposed to have a lot more prominent camouflage, and that is not in the final build of Halo Combat Evolved. Maybe there is some camouflage elements in there, but you know, you'd have to really zoom in. The graphics aren't really great enough to really get in there and see, but I personally don't see it when I look at it. So, but looking at the concept art, you can tell that they really wanted them to have more camouflage on their clothing beneath their armor, which we did ultimately see in further on Halo games. The ODSTs were camouflage in Halo 2, and then Halo 3, you can really see the camouflage on their clothing. But moving on to this next piece of concept art, and I find this really cool too, because unlike the Navy crewmen in Halo Combat Evolved, the Marines have a bunch of different variants, or a few different variants, some that wear helmets, some that wear caps, like this guy, which I think is really neat because they designed that while they're doing the concept art, that they're going to have different kinds of Marines, and that some that wore helmets, some that wore hats, and you can see that here, and I think that's really cool. They also had different Marines that wore boonie hats and stuff like that, so I just think it's really cool that they actually made different kinds of Marines that had different varying degrees of armor and stuff, which it just makes me wonder, why didn't they do more with the Navy crewmen? But when they had the concept art too, they just added all these details to the Marines. But either way, moving on to the next piece of concept art, and as you can see from right here, this is getting pretty close. He's actually carrying an assault rifle, and one thing that I really throughout all these pieces of concept art for the Marines that we've looked at, the boots never really looked quite like they did in Halo Combat Evolved, because the Halo Combat Evolved boots were very, you could tell that there was boots, but the main design around them was the shin and knee armor on top of the boots, whereas when you look at the concept art, it was obviously supposed to be a big armored boot that went all the way up to his knees, and they got rid of that ultimately in Halo Combat Evolved whenever it launched. But it's interesting seeing this. He's got like studded kneecaps. I actually like rubbed my knee when I did that in case you guys could see my knee beneath my desk. Either way, he's got the actual correct looking chest armor, you know, that you see in Halo Combat Evolved, but most importantly, he's got the UNSC Marine helmet shape that we see in Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, and Halo 3, and that they just continue to innovate on with Halo Reach and so forth. But either way, this is about as close as you can get. I have another piece of concept art right here, which shows it from a different angle. You can tell that the assault rifles are actually different shapes in between the two. The one on the first one I showed you actually looks like it's got a clip sticking out above his helmet there, which is pretty interesting. But you can really see in this piece of concept art, which is why I chose to show it now, that they changed the boots. You can actually really see in this piece that the boot is not attached to the shin and knee armor like it is in all the other Marines that you're seeing here. But the chest piece looks like it's got like an extra little bandolier type thing on there. But this is about as close as you can get to the final build of the Marine that we got in Halo Combat Evolved. And here he is, the UNSC Marine from Halo Combat Evolved. I love these guys. They're badass. The charm that these guys brought to the battlefield, I love. It helps make Halo Combat Evolved so timeless. I love fighting alongside these guys, and I love going through every single mission, trying to save every single one of them, and they're one of the reasons why I love Halo. The UNSC Marine guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is all I have for this video. Be sure to like the video if you found yourself liking the video. It helps the video out a lot. It also helps the video reach more Halo fans, which means a lot to me. And I also make new Halo videos every single week, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.